Ambassador William Carter sat quietly in the massive amphitheater of the Galactic Council. The room stretched so wide that some species needed viewing screens to see the central podium. Hundreds of different alien races filled the chamber. Some looked almost human. Others were so strange that Carter still found it hard not to stare even after 3 years as Earth's representative. Today, the Council discussed the Rigelian-Arcturian conflict again. For the past 4 hours, Carter had listened to species after species decline to help the Arcturians. The peaceful Arcturians, known across the galaxy for their beautiful art and deep philosophy, were being killed by the warlike Rigelians. Reports showed that millions had already died. The Galactic Council cannot interfere in regional conflicts, said the Voraland representative, a tall blue-skinned being. This is our long-standing policy. Carter noticed how the Voraland avoided looking at the Arcturian section, where their ambassador sat with head bowed. Only 6 Arcturian worlds remained free. The others were under Rigelian control or destroyed. The Tasic representative spoke next. While we sympathize with the Arcturian people, we must consider the trade implications of opposing the Rigelian Empire. Carter clenched his jaw, but kept his face neutral. The Tasic cared only about profit. The Rigelians had already promised them mining rights on conquered Arcturian worlds. One by one, the major powers of the galaxy found reasons to do nothing. Some cited ancient laws of non-interference. Others mentioned peace treaties with the Rigelians. A few simply said it wasn't their problem. When the Rigelian representative spoke, Carter studied him carefully. Ambassador Grex was tall and reptilian with dark red scales and yellow eyes. The Arcturians have resources our empire needs, Grex said bluntly. They refused fair payment. Now they face the consequences. The Arcturian ambassador, Philiv, rose slowly to respond. Arcturians looked somewhat like tall, slender humans with pale blue skin and large, sad eyes. We ask the Council once more to help us. The Rigelians do not want our resources. They want to destroy our entire culture because we refuse to bow to them. Grex laughed. Your culture, your art and philosophy won't power ships or feed people. The galaxy needs what you're sitting on, not your poems. As the session neared its end, the Council head asked if any other representatives wished to speak. Usually, Earth stayed quiet during these debates. Humanity was still seen as newcomers to galactic politics. Most species thought humans were far behind in technology because they had achieved faster than light travel only 30 years ago. Carter pressed the button on his desk, requesting to speak. A surprised murmur went through the chamber. The Council head nodded to him. Carter stood and straightened his dark blue diplomatic uniform. He was a tall man with gray hair at his temples and deep lines around his eyes from years of difficult negotiations. The people of Earth have watched this conflict with growing concern, he began, his voice calm and measured. We have studied the evidence. We have listened to the debates. We have considered our place in this galactic community. The chamber grew quiet. Even the usually restless delegates seemed to sense something important was happening. For 3 years, we have learned from you all. We have traded, shared knowledge, and built relationships. We hope that in a community of thousands of advanced civilizations, justice would prevail without our involvement. Carter paused and looked directly at the Rigelian ambassador. We were wrong. Earth has made its decision. The silence in the room became absolute. Even the environmental systems seemed to quiet down. Humanity is entering the war against the Rigelian Empire, effective immediately. We will defend the remaining Arcturian worlds and work to liberate those under Rigelian occupation. Gasps and shouts erupted across the chamber. The Council head banged his ceremonial staff for order. The Rigelian ambassador's yellow eyes widened in shock, then narrowed with contempt. You? Your primitive species. Grex laughed. You have signed your own extinction order. Carter simply nodded politely. We will see, he said, before taking his seat as the Council erupted into chaos around him. 2 weeks before his announcement to the Galactic Council, William Carter sat in a large oval room of Earth's Global Defense Council. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, casting long shadows across the polished wooden table where 24 men and women debated the fate of two alien species. Admiral Susan Miller stood beside a holographic display showing Rigelian fleet movements. She was a short woman with short gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. Her uniform carried the marks of 30 years of service. "The Rigelians have taken 3 more Arcturan worlds since our last meeting," she said, pointing to red dots on the map. "At this rate, the Arcturan civilization will be gone within 8 months. President Laura Kemp nodded slowly. She was in her second term as Earth's leader, known for careful thinking and bold action when needed. "And if we do nothing?" she asked. Admiral Miller touched her screen, and the map changed. Now it showed human space and the advancing edge of Rigelian territory. "Based on their pattern of expansion, they will reach our outer colonies within 3 years," Miller said. "The Rigelians don't stop. They take what they want. And right now, they want everything." John Reeves, the trade secretary, leaned forward. "Entering a war would disrupt our new trade agreements with the Vorelan Confederacy and the Tacit Union. We've worked years to build those relationships. What good are trade agreements if we're dead?" asked General Frank Howard, his voice rough from years of shouting orders. "The Rigelians won't stop at the Arcturans. We're just further down their list." Carter watched the debate continue for hours. Some council members wanted to wait and build stronger defenses. Others argued for immediate action to save the Arcturans. A few suggested quiet diplomacy might still work. "Ambassador Carter," President Kemp said finally, "you've been silent. You know the council members better than anyone. What do you think?" Carter chose his words carefully. "The Galactic Council will not help the Arcturans. They fear the Rigelians too much. But they're making a mistake. The Rigelians see diplomacy as weakness. They respect only strength." He stood and walked to the window, looking up at the sky. "Most species out there think we're weak. They see our short time in space and assume we're far behind them in technology and military power." "Which has been useful," Admiral Miller added with a small smile. Carter nodded. "Very useful. We've been able to develop our fleet and defenses without anyone paying much attention. The Rigelians have no idea what they would be facing." President Kemp looked around the table. "It's time to vote. Do we enter this war to save the Arcturans, knowing it will likely bring Rigelian aggression to our doorstep sooner?" One by one, the council members voted. The final count was 13 in favor, 11 against. President Kemp stood. "Then it's decided. Earth will stand with the Arcturans against Rigelian aggression." As the council members left, President Kemp asked Carter to stay behind. When they were alone, she walked to a small cabinet and took out 2 glasses and a bottle of amber liquid. "This was my grandfather's," she said, pouring a small amount in each glass. "He said to save it for historic decisions." She handed 1 glass to Carter. "Make them understand we're not doing this lightly," she said quietly. "The Rigelians need to know they can back down without losing face. But if they won't," she paused, looking out the window at the busy streets of New Washington below. "If they won't, make sure they understand what it means when humans go to war." Carter took a small sip, feeling the burn in his throat. "I understand, Madam President." She looked at him, her eyes serious. "The galaxy has no idea what we're capable of, William. Let's hope the Rigelians are smart enough to back down before they find out." Carter nodded grimly. In his 3 years among the stars, he had learned one important truth. Most alien species had never known war as humans had. They had never faced extinction, never fought with the desperate fury of a species on the edge of annihilation. The Rigelians were about to learn a painful lesson about humanity. News of Earth's decision spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Within hours of Carter's announcement, every major news network was talking about humanity's surprising move. On the central world of the Vorelan Confederacy, the most popular news show featured a panel of experts discussing the human decision. "It's a noble but foolish gesture," said Professor Zinn, a well-known political analyst with purple skin and 4 arms. The humans are still new to space travel. Their technology is at least a century behind the Rigelians. The host, a tall Vorland with bright blue markings on her face, nodded. Our sources say humans have fewer than 300 warships. The Rigelian fleet numbers in the thousands. They're committing suicide, another expert said bluntly. And for what? The Arcturans. A dying race with beautiful art, but no practical value to the galactic economy. Similar conversations happened on thousands of worlds. Most species viewed humanity's decision as either a naive mistake or a strange form of species-wide suicide. Only a few wondered if the humans knew something everyone else didn't. On the Rigelian homeworld, Fleet Commander Vrax received the news in his war room. Vrax was larger than most Rigelians, his red scales darker and his yellow eyes sharper. Around him stood his top generals, all watching the recording of Ambassador Carter's announcement. When it ended, Vrax laughed, a harsh sound like rocks grinding together. So the monkey species wants to play war with us. General Krav, his chief strategist, stepped forward. Supreme Commander, should we divert ships to deal with this human threat? Vrax waved a clawed hand dismissively. No, continue with our plans for the remaining Arcturan worlds. Send the 7th Fleet to handle Earth. It's more than enough. He pointed to the star map. Our intelligence shows their colonies are barely defended, and their main fleet is small and primitive. They achieved space travel only 30 years ago. What could they possibly do against us? The generals laughed, but one remained silent. General Shen, who had studied human history, wondered if they were missing something important. Still, she knew better than to question Vrax openly. Meanwhile, on the remaining free Arcturan worlds, people gathered in public squares to watch news of Earth's announcement. Unlike the rest of the galaxy, they celebrated, their large eyes filled with the first hope they had felt in years. On the Arcturan diplomatic ship stationed near the Galactic Council, Ambassador Thiliv watched the news with his staff. Thiliv was older than most Arcturans in diplomatic service, with pale blue skin that had started to wrinkle around his eyes. "Do you think they can really help us?" asked his young assistant, Nilara. "They're just one species, and not even an old or powerful one." Thiliv considered the question carefully. "I'm not sure," he admitted, "but Ambassador Carter is not a fool. He wouldn't commit his people to a war they couldn't fight." After the council session ended, Thiliv approached Carter in a quiet hallway away from the other diplomats. "Your announcement was unexpected," the Arcturan said softly. "We are grateful, but we fear you've doomed yourselves alongside us." Carter's expression remained calm, but his eyes were determined. "We've been preparing for this moment since we joined the council, Ambassador Thiliv. The Rigelians have severely miscalculated." "How?" Thiliv asked. "Your ships, your technology." Carter smiled slightly. "Let me ask you something, Ambassador. When your people first met humans, what surprised you most about us?" Thiliv thought for a moment. "Your adaptability. Your species can live almost anywhere and learn almost anything quickly." "Exactly," Carter said. "We adapt. We learn. And we've been learning a great deal these past 30 years. He looked down the hallway where the Rigelian ambassador was speaking angrily with his staff. "The Rigelians think they know what humans are capable of," Carter said quietly. "They're about to discover how wrong they are." Thiliv felt a strange chill. For the first time since the war began, he wondered if his people might actually survive. 1 week after Earth's announcement, the Rigelian 7th Fleet arrived at the human border colony of New Horizon. 30 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Each Rigelian ship was massive, at least 3 times larger than any known human vessel. Fleet Captain Draxt stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Conqueror. He watched the planet New Horizon appear on the main screen. It looked peaceful with its blue oceans and green continents. "Scan the system," Drax ordered. "Find their defenses." The crew worked quickly, checking their sensors. "Captain, "We detect only 3 small defense stations around the planet," reported his second-in-command. "No major weapons platforms. No warships. Their planetary shield is basic." Drax showed his sharp teeth in what Rigelians considered a smile. "As expected. These humans are fools. Move into bombardment position. We'll destroy their colony and move on to their next world. They'll soon beg for peace." The Rigelian ships moved closer to the planet in perfect formation. Their weapon systems powered up, ready to rain destruction on the human colony below. In the governor's office on New Horizon, Governor Kelly Ross watched the approaching Rigelian fleet on her own screens. She was a former military officer with short brown hair and steady hands. Even as the enemy fleet approached, she remained calm. "They're in position," her defense chief said. Ross nodded. "Send the signal." The defense chief pressed a button on his tablet. Signal sent. In space, as the Rigelian ships prepared to fire, something unexpected happened. Hundreds of small objects suddenly appeared on their sensors. These objects had been hidden throughout the system, behind moons, inside asteroid fields, and in orbit disguised as communication satellites. "Captain," shouted the Rigelian sensor officer. Unknown devices activating throughout the system. Before Drax could respond, the devices activated. They projected invisible fields of gravitational distortion that reached out and enveloped each Rigelian ship. Suddenly, the Rigelian engines couldn't work properly. Their weapon systems went offline. Their ships drifted helplessly. "What is happening?" Drax demanded. "Fix this now." His crew worked frantically, but nothing they tried worked. The technology affecting their ships was unlike anything they had seen before. Then, from the shadow of the system's large gas giant, human ships appeared. They were smaller than the Rigelian vessels, but moved with incredible speed and precision. Each one glowed slightly blue from their advanced engines. On the bridge of the human vessel Intrepid, Captain Alice Dawson watched the disabled Rigelian fleet. She was young for a captain, with dark skin and determined eyes. Her crew worked efficiently around her, no one showing fear despite facing the feared Rigelian war fleet. "All targets are contained in the gravity fields," her tactical officer reported. "Their weapons and engines are disabled." Dawson nodded and opened a communication channel to the entire Rigelian fleet. "Attention Rigelian vessels. This is Captain Alice Dawson of the Earth Fleet ship Intrepid. You have entered human space without permission. You have 1 hour to surrender." On the Conqueror, Drax received the message with shock and anger. "Never. We are Rigelians. We do not surrender." He ordered his crew to find a way through the strange fields affecting their ships. They tried everything, but the human technology was too advanced, too different from anything they had encountered before. As the hour passed, more human ships arrived. They moved around the trapped Rigelian vessels like wolves circling prey. In the governor's office, Ross received a secure call from Earth Command. "The trap worked perfectly," she reported. "The Rigelians are contained." "Any casualties?" asked the voice from Earth. "None on our side," Ross answered. "And if they surrender, none on theirs either." When the hour was up, Captain Dawson contacted the Rigelian fleet again. "Your time is up. What is your decision?" After a long pause, Drax responded, his voice tight with rage. "We surrender." Across the galaxy, news of the Rigelian defeat spread quickly. No one could believe that humans had captured an entire Rigelian fleet without losing a single ship. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know more about this species that had hidden its true capabilities so well. 3 days after the battle at New Horizon, the Galactic Council called an emergency session. The large chamber was packed with representatives from every major species. The news of the Rigelian defeat had shocked the galaxy. Ambassador William Carter walked calmly to his seat, aware of the hundreds of eyes following him. Some looked at him with new respect, others with fear. The humans had suddenly become the most interesting species in the galaxy. The council head, a tall being with silvery skin, called the meeting to order. We are here to discuss the recent conflict between Earth and the Rigelian Empire. Ambassador Grex has demanded answers about human military technology that was not disclosed to the Council. Grex, the Rigelian ambassador, stood up. His red scales seemed darker with anger. The humans have deceived us all. They presented themselves as newcomers to space travel with limited technology. Now we find they possess weapons and defenses far beyond what they claimed. Murmurs of agreement came from many representatives. The Vorlan ambassador nodded. We must know the full extent of human military capability. The council head turned to Carter. Ambassador Carter, will you address these concerns? Carter stood and straightened his uniform. He looked around the chamber slowly before speaking. When humanity joined this council 3 years ago, we shared all our civilian technology as required by membership rules. We did not hide our true nature. We simply didn't volunteer information that wasn't asked for. He pressed a button on his desk, and a hologram appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed images from Earth's history, terrible wars, destroyed cities, weapons of mass destruction. While you all focused on building bigger ships and more destructive weapons, we studied strategy, adaptability, and unconventional warfare. Size isn't everything. The hologram changed to show Earth's fleet, smaller than Rigelian ships but clearly more advanced. Humanity's painful history taught us hard lessons. For thousands of years, we fought ourselves. We nearly destroyed our own planet several times. When we finally achieved peace among our own kind, we had developed a deep understanding of warfare that most species in this galaxy never needed to learn. Many representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. We came to the stars hoping never to need our weapons. The Rigelians gave us no choice when they began exterminating the Arcturans. Grex stood again. Enough of this. The Rigelian Empire demands the immediate return of our captured fleet and an end to human interference in our territorial expansion. Carter simply shook his head. No. The simple word silenced the chamber. The Rigelian ships will remain in our custody until the end of this conflict. As for interference, Earth fleet vessels are already moving to liberate Arcturan worlds under Rigelian occupation. On the occupied Arcturan world of Nexus Prime, Lieutenant Jack Rivera led his small team through dense blue forests. 6 human soldiers moved silently, wearing advanced camouflage suits that bent light around them. They were nearly invisible. Rivera was young but experienced, with quick eyes and steady hands. His team had been on Nexus Prime for 2 days, making contact with the Arcturan resistance fighters hiding in the mountains. They reached a clearing where a group of Arcturans waited. The Arcturans were thin from months of hiding and fighting, but their eyes showed new hope. The Rigelians have a main base here, said Kynar, the Arcturan resistance leader, pointing to a spot on his crude map. They have 300 soldiers and energy shields. Rivera nodded and activated his communication device. A small hologram showed the area from orbit. Their shields have a pattern. Every 6 hours, they reset for 3 seconds. He looked at his team. That's our window. There are too many Rigelians, Kynar said. Even with your help, we cannot defeat them in direct battle. Rivera smiled slightly. We don't plan to fight them directly. He explained the human plan. Using small devices to disrupt Rigelian communications, deploying the same gravity distortion technology that had worked at New Horizon, and turning the Rigelians' own security systems against them. We don't need to be stronger, Rivera told the amazed Arcturans. We just need to be smarter. Across the galaxy, on 10 different occupied Arcturan worlds, similar teams of humans were putting these plans into action. The Rigelians, who had always relied on overwhelming force, found themselves facing an enemy that refused to fight by the expected rules of war. 3 months after Earth entered the war, Supreme Commander Vrax called an emergency meeting on the Rigelian throne world. His top generals gathered in the war chamber, a massive room with walls made of dark red stone. A large holographic map showed the current state of the conflict. Vrax paced in front of the map, his claws clicking on the stone floor. More than a third of the map showed areas now marked in blue, territories retaken by the Arcturans with human help. "This is unacceptable," Vrax growled. "How can one small species cause so much damage to our empire?" General Krav stepped forward nervously. "Supreme Commander, the humans use tactics we have never seen before. They avoid direct confrontation. They disable rather than destroy. They turn our own systems against us." "Excuses." Vrax slammed his fist on the table. "I want results. We must crush these humans before others join them." "We have gathered our reserve fleets as you ordered," said General Shen, the only female among the generals. 500 warships, our best crews. They wait for your command." Vrax studied the map. "Good. We will ignore these small skirmishes and strike directly at Earth. One massive attack to destroy their homeworld. Without Earth, their colonies will surrender." On Earth, in the underground command center of Earth Fleet Headquarters, Admiral Susan Miller already knew about the Regellian plan. Human intelligence ships had intercepted Regellian communications days ago. "They're gathering their reserve fleets," she told President Kemp during their secure video call. "Our sources confirm they plan to attack Earth directly." President Kemp's face showed no fear. "Is the trap ready?" Miller nodded. "Yes, Madam President. Operation Checkmate is in place." "Very good. Proceed as planned." 2 days later, the Regellian Reserve Fleet prepared to launch their attack on Earth. 500 massive warships gathered near the Regellian fortress world of Karthos. As they prepared to jump to light speed, sensors suddenly detected multiple energy signatures appearing around them. Before they could react, 70 human warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at 7 different points around the Regellian fleet. On the bridge of the Earth Fleet flagship Defender, Admiral Miller watched calmly as her ships moved into position. Each human vessel was smaller than its Regellian counterpart, but glowed with energy readings that confounded Regellian sensors. "All ships in position," her tactical officer reported. "Jump drives charged and ready." Miller nodded. "Begin Operation Checkmate." The human ships activated a technology the Regellians had never seen, a modified version of their faster-than-light drives that created localized wormholes. Suddenly, instead of fighting in one location, the human fleet was attacking 7 key Regellian military installations simultaneously. The precision of the human strikes was perfect. They targeted command centers, weapons depots, and communication nodes. They didn't aim to kill, but to disable the Regellian ability to wage war. Meanwhile, on the Regellian throne world, a small team of human special forces led by General Peter Yang moved silently through the Imperial Palace. They wore advanced stealth suits that made them nearly invisible to Regellian security systems. Yang was an older man with gray hair and the quiet confidence of someone who had fought many battles. His 5-person team moved with perfect coordination, disabling security systems without alerting the guards. Their mission was the most dangerous and important of the war: to capture Fleet Commander Vrax alive. As Vrax raged in his private chambers about the surprise attacks on Regellian military installations, he had no idea that humans were already inside his supposedly impregnable palace. Yang and his team reached the door to Vrax's chambers. With practiced efficiency, they disabled the guards using non-lethal weapons that caused temporary paralysis. Yang checked his scanner one last time. "Target is alone. Remember, we take him alive with minimal force." They burst into the room. Vrax barely had time to reach for his weapon before Yang fired a specialized stun device. The Regellian commander collapsed to the floor, unconscious but unharmed. "Target secured," Yang reported through his secure communication link. "Beginning extraction." Across the galaxy, news spread quickly of the daring human raids. In a single day, Earth had crippled the Regellian military infrastructure and captured their supreme commander. The psychological impact was devastating to Regellian morale. In the Galactic Council, representatives from previously neutral species began to reconsider their position. The Solarians, impressed by human military prowess, announced they would join the alliance against Regellian aggression. The war had reached its turning point. With the capture of Supreme Commander Vrax and the crippling of major Regellian military installations, the war entered a new phase. Ambassador William Carter called for a ceasefire and peace conference at the Galactic Council. Representatives from all major powers gathered in the Grand Meeting Hall. The room looked different now. Delegates who had once ignored Carter now sought his attention. Species that had dismissed humans as unimportant now watched them carefully. Carter stood at the center of the chamber, his expression serious but not triumphant. Earth did not enter this war to destroy the Regellian Empire. We acted to stop the extinction of the Arcturan people and to prevent further aggression. Now we offer peace. The acting Regellian representative, a nervous-looking official named Sarn, stood up. "What are your terms?" he asked, trying to sound confident despite his shaking hands. Carter displayed a hologram showing a map of the galaxy. First, immediate withdrawal of all Regellian forces from Arcturan worlds. Second, reparations to help the Arcturans rebuild. Third, a demilitarized zone between your territories to prevent future conflicts. Murmurs filled the chamber. The terms were reasonable, not the harsh demands many had expected. Over the next week, Carter met privately with representatives from major powers. In each meeting, he was calm and respectful. He did not boast about human military victories. Instead, he emphasized their desire for peace. In his meeting with the Vorlan ambassador, Carter explained human thinking. We could continue the war, but that would mean more deaths on both sides. We prefer to find a path to peace that allows both the Arcturans and Regellians to survive. The Vorlan seemed surprised. Your species shows unexpected restraint. Many thought you would seek to destroy the Regellians completely. Carter shook his head. That was never our goal. His most difficult meeting was with Sarn, the Regellian representative. Sarn had been given temporary authority to negotiate while Vrax remained in human custody. Your terms are insulting, Sarn said when they met in a small conference room. The mighty Regellian Empire does not surrender territory or pay reparations. Carter looked at him steadily. The alternative is continued war. Your military is crippled. Your leader is captured. More species join our alliance every day. How long do you think your empire would last? Sarn's yellow eyes narrowed. You deceived the galaxy. You hid your true nature while building weapons of war. No, Carter replied calmly. We built shields before swords. Every technology we developed was primarily defensive. We wanted peace. Your empire chose extermination. Now you face the consequences of that choice. Sarn stood suddenly, his claws extended. The Regellian Empire still has weapons that could destroy entire planets. If pushed too far, we will use them. Carter didn't flinch at the threat. Instead, he placed a small device on the table between them. With a soft click, it activated. Sarn tried to extend his energy blade, a weapon all Regellian diplomats carried hidden in their robes. Nothing happened. He pressed the emergency button on his communicator. It remained silent. What have you done? He demanded. This device creates a field that neutralizes energy weapons within 10 meters, Carter explained. We developed it after studying Regellian technology. We have similar countermeasures for every weapon in your arsenal. The message was clear. Human technological superiority was not just in weapons, but in countermeasures too. After a week of negotiations, most species supported the human peace proposal. The Solarians offered to help enforce the demilitarized zone. The Vorlans agreed to oversee the reparations process. Even the normally neutral Tacit Union sided with Earth. Faced with growing isolation and the continued human military advantage, the Regellian Empire finally agreed to negotiate seriously. In his private quarters that night, Carter sent a message to President Kemp. They're coming to the table. Real peace talks begin tomorrow. President Kemp's reply was simple. Well done, William. Remember the goal, not just to end this war, but to prevent the next one. Carter looked out at the stars visible through his window. He hoped they were creating a peace that would last, not just a pause between conflicts. The galaxy was watching. What happened next would shape relations between species for generations to come. 1 year after Ambassador William Carter's stunning announcement that shocked the galaxy, representatives from all major species gathered again in the Galactic Council chamber. This time, they came to witness the signing of a historic peace treaty. The chamber looked different now. Where once the Regellian delegation had dominated proceedings with their large numbers and aggressive posture, they now sat quietly with a smaller team. Their new leader, reformist Prime Shen, had replaced Vrax after a dramatic change in their government. The Arcturans, once facing extinction, now held their heads high. They had regained all their worlds and begun rebuilding with human assistance. Their delegation was led by Ambassador Thiliv, whose eyes no longer carried the shadow of despair that had marked them for so long. Carter entered the chamber last. He walked slowly, looking older than a year ago. The war had taken its toll on everyone, including him. But there was a quiet satisfaction in his eyes as he took his place at the central podium. 1 year ago, I stood in this chamber and announced that humanity was entering a war we did not want, but could not avoid, he began. Today, I am honored to announce its end. The room was silent as he continued. The treaty before us ensures the sovereignty of all Arcturan worlds. It establishes a demilitarized zone between Arcturan and Regellian space, monitored by a joint force from multiple species. It provides for reparations to rebuild what was destroyed. Carter looked directly at the Regellian delegation. It also recognizes the reformed Regellian government and guarantees their territorial integrity. This is not a punitive peace. It is a foundation for a better future for all our peoples. One by one, representatives came forward to sign the treaty. When Prime Shen signed for the Regellians, a collective breath seemed to release throughout the chamber. The war was truly over. After the formal signing, Carter addressed the assembly once more. His voice was stronger now, more determined. Humanity joined this community hoping to find wisdom among the stars. Instead, we found the same fear and prejudice we've struggled with throughout our own history. We chose to fight not because we love war, but because we understand its cost better than most. He activated a hologram showing the current Galactic Charter, the ancient document that established the Council thousands of years ago. This charter speaks of cooperation and peace, but it lacks enforcement. It allows genocide to happen while this council debates trade implications and ancient protocols of non-interference. Carter proposed a new galactic charter with actual enforcement mechanisms. We need a system that can prevent future conflicts, not just react to them after millions have died. Many species looked uncomfortable. The Vorolans whispered among themselves. The Tasic representative frowned. Change came slowly in galactic politics. But the alliance that had formed around Earth and the Arcturans had become the new center of galactic power. More than 30 species had already indicated support for Carter's proposal. As the session concluded, the Arcturan ambassador Thiliv approached Carter in the quiet garden outside the council chamber. The garden was filled with plants from hundreds of worlds, a symbol of diverse species growing together in harmony. Your people saved more than our lives, Thiliv said quietly. You saved the soul of this galactic community. Carter smiled, thinking of all the humans who had made this possible. From President Kemp's difficult decision, to Admiral Miller's strategic genius, to soldiers like Rivera and Yang, who fought with restraint and precision. We came to the stars hoping never to need our weapons, he told Thiliv. But we never forgot what we learned from our own bloody history. The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. As they walked together among the alien plants, delegates from other species watched them with new respect. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. On Earth, President Kemp addressed her own people as news of the treaty signing reached them. This is not just peace for the Arcturans, or for humans, she said. This is a step toward a galaxy where all species can live without fear. Our journey among the stars has just begun. And in schools across Arcturan worlds, young children with blue skin and Large Eyes learned about the humans who had come from a distant planet to save them when everyone else had turned away.